Somewhere in your life, there was a first moment, a first face you saw, a first sound that meant something, a first time you felt afraid or safe or hungry, and someone came. You do not remember any of it. Not because it did not matter, not because it was not intense. In fact, it may have been some of the most intense learning your brain will ever do. But the real answer for why it is gone is far stranger than simple forgetting. Your brain did not lose those memories. It may never have been able to keep them in the first place. Think about what you actually know of your earliest years. Most people cannot recall anything before the age of 3 or 4. Some can't reach back further than 5 or 6. This gap has a name. Researchers call it infantile amnesia, and for over a century it has puzzled the very people who study memory for a living. Sigmund Freud was one of the first to name the phenomenon, though his explanation leaned on repression, the idea that early memories were buried because they were too disturbing to keep in view. Modern research tells a very different story. The problem was never that the memories were hidden. The problem may be that they were never fully built. Here is where it gets strange. Babies are not blank. A baby's brain in its first year of life is doing more learning per second than it may ever do again. It is mapping faces. It is learning the sound of a native language before it can speak a single word of it. It is building the emotional bond that will shape how it trusts people for the rest of its life. So why does none of that stay? The psychologist Carolyn Roby Collier ran a now famous series of experiments with infants and mobiles. She would tie a ribbon from a baby's ankle to a mobile hanging above the crib, and the baby would quickly learn that kicking made the mobile move. Weeks later, without the ribbon, without any reminder, the same baby would start kicking the moment it saw that same mobile again. The memory was there. It had simply gone quiet, waiting for the right cue to wake it back up. This tells you something important. Babies can remember. What they seem to struggle with is holding on to that memory in a form you can later put into words. That distinction matters more than it sounds like it should. Memory is not one single thing. There are memories for how to do something, like riding a bike, that live in one part of the brain. There are memories for facts and events, the kind you could describe out loud to another person, that live somewhere else entirely. That second kind, the kind that lets you say, "I remember the day my sister was born," or "I remember my 5th birthday," depends on a small, seahorse-shaped structure deep in your brain called the hippocampus. And here is the twist. The hippocampus is one of the last major memory structures to fully mature. Neuroscientist Patricia Bauer has spent decades studying exactly this gap. Her research suggests that the hippocampus in early childhood is still under construction, still growing new connections, still learning how to file experiences away in a form that can later be pulled back out as a story. A baby's brain is not failing to remember. It is running an early, unfinished version of the software required to store a memory the way an adult mind can retrieve one. Imagine trying to save a file on a computer before the hard drive has finished installing. The moment happens. The experience registers, but there may be nowhere stable yet to keep it filed for later. There is another piece to this puzzle, and it involves something you did not have yet as an infant: language. Before you could speak, you had no words to organize your experience into a story with a beginning, a middle, and an end. Adults remember in narrative. You remember your first day of school partly because you can describe it to yourself, in sentences, with a sequence of events attached. A baby has no such scaffolding. The experience may be felt in full, but it is not yet filed the way a memory needs to be filed to survive years of being asked back for. So the years before language are not empty of experience. They are simply experience without a shelf to be placed on. There is a further irony hiding inside all of this. The years you cannot remember are, by nearly every measure, the years that shaped you the most. The attachment style that will color your relationships as an adult. The sense of whether the world is generally safe or generally threatening. The rhythms of comfort and distress that taught your nervous system how to regulate itself. All of it is built during the exact window you will spend the rest of your life unable to consciously recall. You are not missing those years because they did not count. You are missing them because your brain was too busy building the foundation to also keep a photograph of the construction. Does this change how you think about the people around you who cannot yet speak? A baby who cannot tell you what happened this morning is not an empty vessel waiting for memories to begin. It is a mind already absorbing everything, already shaping a version of you, long before it has any way to hand that version back to you in words. Consider what this means for the moments you do remember from a slightly older age. Your first memories tend to be scattered flashes rather than a continuous story. A birthday cake, a fall from a bike, a specific room in a house you may not even remember the rest of. These are not the beginning of your memory. They are simply the first moments your still maturing hippocampus was finally able to hold on to with enough stability to survive being asked for later. This is also why your very early memories, the handful that do survive, often feel less like memories and more like fragments borrowed from someone else's story. Some of what you believe you remember from early childhood may not even be a memory of the event itself, but a memory of being told about the event, reconstructed so vividly it feels like witnessing it firsthand. Your mind is not a filing cabinet. It is closer to a storyteller, quietly filling gaps long after the original moment has faded past reach. So the next time you try to reach back and find nothing there before a certain age, you are not encountering a flaw in your memory. You are encountering the exact edge where the machinery for keeping a memory finally came online, the point where your brain stopped just experiencing the world and started being able to hold on to it in a form you could later call your own. You do not remember your first face, your first fear, your first comfort. But somewhere underneath every relationship you have ever trusted, every room that has ever felt safe without explanation, that face and that fear and that comfort are still there. Unremembered, but never unfelt.